All right, we back. Let's get into it. Let's get into it. Let's get into it. Hey, great video last night. I mean, great live. Dr. Dunbar, Sachi, me. Lonzo was, kind of tied up and busy at the moment, but he'll be around again. Man, just a lot of the information, man, talked about last night. I mean, just staying ahead of the curve. You know, um, Dr. Dunbar came with some good hits. And that's like the thing, man. We always talking about making more money, but because you make more, that don't mean you're gonna save more, you're gonna have more to a degree because you're gonna spend more. You might have more because you're spending, but as far as more money or more wealth, it depends on you. Your situation. I mean, quite simple. Showing the article last night talking about the guy that made 350,000, but he had $3,000 house note. He had you know student loan debt. All these things nobody takes into consideration. You know, Game show, what's going on, man? Hey, nobody take this stuff into consideration. You literally got a house note for 3,000. You got student loan. You got to pay back $1,500. That's already 35, and you got your regular utilities and all that, and cable, lights, insurance. I just put that on another 1,000 right there. That's 45. And then what else? Some little expenses and stuff like that. It's just add another 1,000. That's 5,500. 5,500. But on average, you make about, let's say, 25 a week. Or no, just keep it at 2,000. Say you make 2,000 a week. That's 8,000. You're already in the whole 5,500 before you even start. Let's go ahead and throw a luxury car in there. With the insurance, that's another 1,500, and that's at 7,000. Then let's go ahead and do 2,500. You make 2,500 a week, but you got $7,000 of debt each month. That leaves you with only $3,000. 3,000 is a lot for some, but Dang, I think StreamYard wilding today just kicked me off. Hey, but basically, you got typically with people who don't even, typically you got people that eat out every night. You got people that know how to cook but just don't want to cook, or people that know how to cook a little bit but they just don't want to cook. So you got to look at the scale of you paying upwards of what? On average, a meal range about 10 to 15 bucks. Anything below that, you get what you get. You go get a cheeseburger, McDonald's, then you have a little health risk. You go to a nice restaurant, you're gonna spend upwards of, at least 15 on a decent meal. You know. The other night I went out, got some hibachi. Normally I go to this small hibachi place that I used to stay on that side of town. A hibachi plate used to be $8 over there, and that was for a steak or shrimp. And now you get the combo mix. It used to be like I think $10 to get a mix steak and shrimp together. Now you do that, it's 16 bucks. The shrimp hibachi I used to get for $8 is now it's $12. But they were closed. I wanted some hibachi. I went to the other side and they gave me the whole so-called meal course deal. They gave me the soup, the salad, the fried rice, shrimp with the onions and zucchini all mixed in. $31. And that was just for dinner alone. I spend that pretty much on average um, driving a truck because if I get some lunch, my lunch typically runs about 10 to 15 bucks. And then go to the gas station. I'm probably spending about $10 on, four drinks and a bag of chips or something, or a little cake or something. So on average, I'm spending about 30, let's say 30, 35, close to that. I would say 25 to 35, just, um, for lunch and snacks, whatever. It's not even including breakfast, where I spend about 10 bucks. Whether I get a burrito or a combo or a coffee and some from Dunkin', on average about 10. Yep. So me guys going. Just dropping, talking about last night. We were having a discussion on big discussions. Links in the chat. The first link is for the discussion that we had last night on Dr. Dunbar's channel. The second link is actually, you're gonna love this one. You input a zip code or city to a degree, and it gives you the range of breakdown of how much in that area, how much things cost. So on average, most people think like, man, staying in this area, you got to make 100,000. It might be more, it might be less, but then it goes back to, it's not accurate. It's an estimate because it's according to people and the way they move and how it is adjusted. So if you're a person that like fine wine, you're going to typically spend a lot of money. And you typically spending a lot of money comes to the effect of what? You're not having or being able to get the things you want if you don't make that money. Most people live above their means on average. That's why I talk about with finance so much. Budgeting is simple. The point of it is nobody wants to budget because budgeting, I guess it takes time, but what doesn't take time that's worth the risk, worth the reward, rather than the risk of not doing it and situations later pan out. So we're just having that discussion about those things, but overall, like I said, you got the guy who was talking about the guy that made 350,000, but he was Has student loan, high end luxury car, um, end up dealing with mortgage, overspent on the mortgage, 3,000 a month. Like I said, if you got a $3,000 mortgage, you got $1,500 bills expense, that's 45. You got a luxury car with insurance, another $1,500. That's 6,000. And let's see what else around the house. That's not even including the kids. Then you add the kids each month. On average, from groceries to the events for the kids, you're looking anywhere from about $500 to $1,000 each month. That includes groceries, snacks galore, because kids gonna go through some snacks. That includes extra on your utilities. You know, really, you might, yeah, about 15, $1,000 is right. So you at six already for your other utilities. That's not even including kids. That's at seven. And it was something else they put. Oh yeah, that's not even including all your other expenses, investments, life insurance. You're looking at another 1,000 for that. So you're tipping the scale at $8,000. $8,000 for all that. Your house, luxury car, all your expenses. You know, throwing food in there. Food is way more expensive. So $8,000. Let's throw another five in for the food. So that's 8,500. But you make 2,500 a week after taxes. So with 8,500, you got about 1,500 to squeeze in a trip with the family for the month. And trips aren't cheap. You get a hotel, it's decent to get a so-called motel or whatever, depending on what you like. You're gonna spend about what, $70 a night, and on average, most families take a week vacation. You know, 7 days, 5 days or so, $350. And then you got the kids, so you want two rooms on average. You're gonna want two rooms. You're not gonna want one unless you're just budgeting down to the T to save money. And personally, I like two rooms. And if you're an adult, you know why you like two rooms. Shout out to Conscious, Sexy Red in the building. And that's the thing. You're looking at $700 for two rooms. Then let's go into the fact you gotta eat out. You're not staying in the Airbnb. Airbnb takes that 700 to about 15. Everybody say, "Oh, Airbnb is cheap. Airbnb is cheap." Yeah, until you start factoring the cleaning costs and all that stuff, that added on features they give you, you know. And then let's go to a hotel. Let's go to an extended stay, a nice extended stay. See, this is from the motel side. Now let's get into the hotel side. You know, the 3-4 star. That's what I typically like to stay in. I get a not three, but 4 or 5 star. 3 stars sometimes be good because I got rewards with Marriott and Fairfax. I used to stay in La Quintas a lot because of La Quintas, La Quintas. Everybody say that they're pretty good, clean and everything. Those start at $100. I went to a wedding in, what would we go to? Baton Rouge. Went to Baton Rouge, and the hotel started a night at I think it was 180 downtown, 180. And they was like, "Oh man, you could have stayed at this place for 112," and it was a La Quinta. I was like, okay, what, $60 difference? I mean, from was it 180? Yeah, because 170, so 180 to 110, so a $70 difference. But we was right down all the scenery downtown, and what they say, location, location, pay for the scenery. So, like I said, taking a trip, like this guy was way over budget but he made $350,000 a year. See, that's the thing when guys talking about, man, I'm finna make 100,000, finna hit that mark over 100,000. Just because you make 100,000, don't mean that 100,000 goes far. You know, you got all these expenses and stuff. See that table's going on. Just because you have all these expenses, they're actually calculating more. See, a lot of people don't budget and factor that in. Every time you get a raise, you spend more. They had a video on Instagram where this lady started off mailroom, $15 an hour. Cool. Still staying with her parents. End up getting an entry position into the company. Cool. Went and got an apartment, nice apartment. End up getting into another higher position. Said, okay. Went and got a house, 3-bedroom house, single. Didn't want to focus on relationship. Headed her career. Okay. Got to a supervisor position. When it spent more money, got a bigger house, got a nicer car. Okay, things good. Got to the manager position. She ended up getting another bigger house to invite a lot of people, family come over to spend night, 4 or 5-bedroom house. Just her. But, you know, just in case the family comes over, they got somewhere to stay. Cool, no problem. Then gets up to, after the manager position, gets into a position of being the CFO, one of the chairmen or something like that. Got this mansion. Went and got a nice mansion. And when she got ready to retire, she had to keep working because every time she got a raise, she was outliving her pay. And that's what most people do. They don't budget. They don't save for a rainy day. I mean, being honest, what is it? Dave Ramsey, Susan, Norman, I think her name is. All of them talk about you being to save 6 months of your salary. I know people that have that type of money on hand, but they're saving it 6 months salary for a rainy day. I mean, I know people that can pull that type of money out of investments, but they're not going to just let that money sit in a bank at point 7 or 0.07 interest of return. No, they're going to take that money. They're going to put it in some CDs. They're going to take the money, put it in stock, something that they can just, pull out at a moment's notice. If they needed a couple thousand, they're not just going to put the money, leave it in the bank, and just let it sit there. Now, on hand, they might have anywhere from $5,000, to hit a rough patch. But I've never seen nobody took 6 months of salary and just keep it in the bank for a rainy day. Nah. I mean, it's not smart. Personally, you need to have that money moving. But nevertheless, people are not doing that. When it comes down to it, a lot of people don't even budget unless they're working extra hours to take a vacation. Why can't you work extra hours for your savings? Why can't you work extra hours for your investments? We was talking about this last night. The average person renting is mad because every year the mortgage goes. Every year their rent goes up, and they're complaining why I have to pay every month extra. But when it comes down to it, you do the math. Property tax goes up every year. Insurance, depending on the crime and everything, might go up. That the owner has to keep up with the inflation, and we have these situations to where people complain about things like that. But when when the shoe's on the other foot and you're the owner or you're staying in your property, then you start complaining about the taxes being so high. But then you get mad when the police response is not there. You get mad when a situation that could burn your house down, and the fire department isn't coming quick enough because the precinct is all the way on the other side of town, like right on the border to the next town or the next city. You know, complaining about the school, but then you don't want to pay your taxes to get the funding for better books and things for your kids. You know, and just thinking outside the box, a lot of people, if you're just depending on your school to teach your kids, you're gonna always be at a disadvantage. I'm constantly talking to my kids. Sweet thumb, what's going on? Cruising is fun anytime. How you doing? And constantly talking to my kids about finance, constantly talking to my kids about behavior, respect, all these things to a degree, they're not going to learn for the most part unless you have a teacher that teaches outside the box. You know, a teacher that sticks strictly with the curricula and nothing more, nothing less. That's the only way these kids are going to learn, you know, is through that way. Taking your investments, and everybody just joining. I'm talking about the situation that happened last night with Dr. Dunbar's channel. Big discussion. Link is in the chat. I mean, link is in the description. I'm sorry, for people to go check that out. It was a good discussion talking about uh, the weight of inflation right now. I mean, how far can your dollar go? And that goes into the second link that's there. The second link is talking pretty much about, you know, the length of your dollar. How far does it go? Yeah. And that's the thing, it, when a kid, I was telling my wife that I said, our son is struggling with math. I said, it's not the teacher's fault that he don't know math. It's our fault. Anything that the teacher says that he's struggling on, anything that we pick up that he's not doing properly, then we need to be the ones that to make sure he does it properly, make it and knows it. Because in the end, if something happens to where he's growing up in a situation where he can't function in society, they're not going to blame all his teachers that didn't teach him math properly. They're going to blame the parents for not taking the initiative to try to teach your own child. You know, the teacher has about 15 to 30 kids at some point. She can't put her hands in every child's life to make sure every child get the proper training, get the proper, understanding, know how. She tries, and to a degree, some don't even try. If you get it, you got it. If you don't, oh well. So this poses a question to a lot of us. What are we actually doing with our lives? You know, our kids going to be. I was talking to my son the other night and telling him, I said, if you don't start taking school serious and dealing with this math, they have something called the school to prison pipeline. And he's like, what's that? I said, those tests that you take every year? And he said, yes. I said, those tests would be based on you functioning in society. Every time your, scores are getting lower, they're counting on you to rob somebody. I said, that's not even most people's interest to rob or do anything of that nature. But if you don't have money, you're shaking a cup, nobody wants to give you money. What are your options? Family's only going to give you so much. To a degree, a lot of people turn to crime that way. And, he looked at me kind of shocked and, to a point of, man, it's like, yeah, this is where things get serious because, you know, you being a young kid into just wanting to have fun and do these things, life gets serious when you're not being able to, do certain things. And now you're not a kid no more. All these expenses are on you, you know, staying with your parents. Parents don't want to give from you don't have a job. Most of the time, you have these situations where they tell you, have an issue with the education. That most jobs don't hire you if you don't have a high school diploma, a GED, and it's to a degree. I heard my aunt. We always talking, and they was like, before long, you're gonna need a college degree to, do French fries at McDonald's. We laughed about it. I was like, that's crazy. Like, you have a degree in this, but you're flipping fries, and I'm telling them, I'm like, that's crazy. But it's going to be the norm to a degree because it's starting to what they call it trimming the fat. In the most cases, yeah, and that's the thing. You can learn just about anything. What's going on, Bronze? But you can learn pretty much about anything online. That's why you have these young kids that are using the internet way more to their advantage. Way more. They had a young guy. Um, his mom was an investor. She got in the stock. She told his son, if you're gonna buy Jordans, invest in the company. The kid got so smart to the point where instead of him buying two pair of Jordans, he'll buy a pair and invest that same average cost of how much a Jordans cost into the stock. You know, whether he buy within fractional shares by putting so much in and getting so much with the stock, or he'll just buy into it by the cost of the stock. Say Nike's at 20 bucks, or let's just say it's at $100. If those Jordans are 250, he'll buy two shares. You know, if it was at 20 bucks and the Jordans are let's say 240 for simple math, you know, you'll go in there and buy 14. And that's the thing, when it comes down to it, a lot of times, man, the game is free for these kids, but they're just so influenced by, and if you're on my channel, you hear me talk about this all the time. Society standards. Society standards put all these kids in a situation to where they don't know anything but to live a lavish life, compete with each other on social media, and that's the norm, you know, versus you getting up, working hard, being dedicated to a craft. Like I was explaining to my oldest son, having a career versus having a job. That's what more kids are taught now. You know, getting to a job and making money, having a career. You know, you're in a position to elevate yourself even more. But that's the thing. You got to be taught that. Bayou Sugar, what's going on? This is Booze Clue Clues. Hello, how you doing? I haven't seen you. How you doing now? But that's the thing when you going into these situations, and like I said, for people that's coming in, check the link out in the description. You can go now, later. It's up to you. You can come back. Link last night was about talking about finance with Dr. Dunbar on Big Discussions 76. Um, me, him, and Sochi talked about, just overall living. I talk about budgeting a lot on my channel, and that was one of the, main focus of the topic about budgeting, talking about a guy who made $350,000 a year. And, I say, let's just average it out. This guy, he was way in debt, you know, a $300,000 house, let's say, or $400,000 house. His student loan matches his income, 300 to 400,000. You know, um, I think it was Dave Ramsey. I seen a guy on Dave Ramsey where Dave Ramsey had a guy on there who failed taking the it wasn't the bars, it was I guess some type of altitude scoring or something to become a doctor. and he failed it 3 times. He had enough credits to become a school teacher and actually try to possibly to become a professor, but he wanted to be a doctor. Failed it literally 3 times just so for him being a doctor, he went became a teacher, studying is gonna go back. The guy was $900,000 in debt. Each time he went to school and went through that program, $300,000. Because when he mess up, instead of him just saying, "Well, I just gonna take a couple of credit," I guess he ended up taking the whole thing over again. I'm like 900,000 in debt. Didn't even go into real big details, knowing that he failed 3 times. That's what the calculation I would assume, but it's more added to that. Didn't really go into detail, but the main thing was $900,000 in debt. And he's a school teacher. 900 in debt, and he's a school teacher. Yeah, I mean the biggest thing is having a budget to where you're not in a position to where a lot of people, you know, are in. You're not even eating noodles every night, but making sure your expenses okay. A Mercedes is a nice car to have, but on average, most people can't afford it. You know, do you still get it to keep up with the Joneses if you can't afford it? Those luxury cars, maintenance. That's the number one thing. That's the only reason I didn't get one for my wife. That's the only reason I talked my wife out of getting a luxury car is because of the maintenance. I mean, I can take a Acura or Lexus, something like that. The maintenance is kind of high, but it's not really up there like the Audis and the Mercedes and the BMWs, like astronomical. You know, and that's the thing. You're buying the car with the intent of the look and everything, the status. You're not factoring the maintenance. Believe it or not, my grandmother had my grandma and granddad had a what was it? A Jaguar. I believe the Cadillac converter went out in it. When the Cadillac converter went out in it, I think it was something else that went out in it too. The Cadillac converter, the starter, or something. It was like $6,000. They had to go take out a loan for it, and the car set for 2 months before they. I mean, was a month, 2 months or 1 month before they went and took out that loan for that car. They still had to make the car payments on that car. They still had to pay the insurance on that car, and also get the money for the loan. When you look at it alone, that's why I say if you can afford it, then that's a luxury you can have and it's good. But to keep up with the Joneses, try to show off a car that you can't afford, especially with the maintenance, the gas alone. You can't put unleaded in that car. Gas down here in Georgia is like 350. 350. The premium gas runs you about I think 410, somewhere around in there, $4.10, some change. So you're looking at about a $60 jump. No, I think gas is higher because I think the one I had one to was 330. Yeah, it was 330 for regular gas and 310 for uh premium gas. So you're looking at an 80, pretty much like an 80 cent jump from the regular gas to premium 80 cent. My pickup truck, I use unleaded in my gas for my gas. And I literally drove my truck without even looking at the gas hand. I heard a beep, didn't really, pay attention to it, and end up getting to a point to where I drove my gas just about completely out. I'm talking about below the E line, below the red line, and I've never really done it like that before. I've always kept the gas when the light come on. I probably drive it, maybe 5 or 10 miles over there just to go to some cheap gas. And I've always put on average about 29 gallons in my truck, and I was thinking my truck is a 30-gallon truck. So fooled around and end up having to put 36 gallons in my truck. 100 and I think it was 113. No, was 120, 26. I think it was like $126. You talking about somebody that was mad? $126, man. I was PO because slap that card, and I'm thinking, on average, I know about like 80 to $100. I wasn't counting for that like that. Almost 130. No, I wasn't accounting for that. So that kind of had me upset. Like extra $30? What the world? And I'm like 30. I think it was 35. And I looked on my phone. I had to go look up my truck. I have a 98 Dodge Ram regular cab. What is it? Magnum 4x4. And so when I looked it up, it said standard 25 gallons. I was like, oh, this pump is wrong. I'm calling this dude, Carl Black, that's over the agriculture down here. They're gonna fix this. And lo and behold, you know, lo and behold, I looked and they said that was for the regular. I had the Magnum and I had a 4x4. The gas tank on the Magnum 4x4 is 36 gallons. I was like, so this truck holds 36 gallons? You talking about somebody was mad? I'm like, man, like what can I do? But when it comes down to it, man, like I said, it's situation where you got to be budgeting, got to have your pockets together. Even though you make more money, you got to sit there and start putting money aside. We was talking about this last night, and I just start doing this to where I take a budget, I take a portion out of my check and automatically set it to another account, out of sight, out of mind. So whatever I get on my check, that's what I get. When my pay increase, that percentage goes over there too. And I do a percent. I don't do by the dollar amount. So let's say I'm making $15. I get a raise to $20. But I'm steady putting only $100 aside in my savings, which I might be making an extra 250. Now, if I do percentage and the percentage is putting over $100 each month and I get a raise like that, then when I get the raise, the percentage, I'll go, instead of 100, it'll go to 180, might go to 160. It goes off the percentage of your check, not the dollar amount that you put aside. But needless to say, when it comes down to a lot, you know, you got to have these situations, you know, to where you have your money in place. You know what you're doing with your money. That's why I'm always talking about budgeting. That's why I'm always talking about, getting things together, because a lot of us, we're doing this all the time. We're in a position that for most of us, we can change our lives, we can change our family lives. We make decent money, but the thing is, us not being able to budget our money. We live in paycheck to paycheck. As the old people say, we rob Peter to pay Paul. In those situations, and when it comes down to it, it's a lot of situations where, like I say, the more money you make, the more you spend on average. A lot of times we don't think about, long-term investing. We don't think about this until we start to get older. When I started talking about life insurance and everything, everybody, you know, that's the situation. We have these situations to where, we always have a lot of us are overspending, you know, a lot of us with the budget, we're just not having it. And we get to situations to where when it comes down to it, man, a lot of us we don't know the first thing. Our parents didn't teach us this, so we don't know it. So when it comes down to it, we're always in a situation where we're behind the curve. I talk about this a lot when I say about a lot of people who sit there and just try to, do the best that they can. Go seek help. You know, we were just talking about this earlier. Um, Sweet Thumb brought it up earlier, talking about the kids in this generation having the phones, having the laptops, all the internet at their fingertips. They could do so much, but the thing of it is, all they doing is just getting into fashion. Like I said, society standards is putting them into a situation where all they want to do is just have fun, try to look cool, and try to be a celebrity. While the other kids, their parents preparing them, they're saving money. They're looking at colleges. They're trying to move the next step. They're investing. That's why you have these 22-year-old millionaires. That's why you have these 25-year-old millionaires starting up websites, starting up apps, selling products. Um, there's on YouTube. I haven't seen them quite much because I don't be in certain areas I used to, and different sites with circles. And this guy, he sells stuff on Amazon. He sell waist trainers. He says his biggest sell is waist trainers. He'd be like, "Oh man, sell a waist trainer? Oh, that's crazy." You sell things that make you money, you know. And the crazy part, this we are adults here, but a lot of sex toys and stuff. That's like the biggest thing because it's discreet on Amazon. I remember I was talking to a guy that ran the e-commerce site on Walmart. He worked for Walmart, and they have a distribution center down here in Atlanta. In I think he said it was Union City area, or something like that. And he has an apartment down there or a townhouse, whatever. And he goes down there for 4 days. Then he come back up to his big old house up in Swanee. Nice house, big nice house, gated community, everything. And the crazy part was he expressed to me, he said, when it comes down to it, Walmart could never be able to compete with Amazon because they're still thinking traditional. They want that customer relationship, which back in the day before the internet, that was the biggest thing. The putting things in front of the store where the little kids might grab a toy. You might need a lighter, headphones, charger, which Walmart still do in the front. This newer generation, they're buying stuff online. I'm talking about to the point of you're buying groceries. Someone picking up your eggs, someone picking your meat. I'm like, man, this is a whole nother world. Then you got the people who are picking this stuff. They're young. They don't know no better. You know, there are things that they haven't been taught. So they just see some eggs. They grab the eggs. They don't know to look at the eggs, look at the spots or look at any cracks or the eggs sticking in they don't look at that stuff. Yeah, I mean, it gets to that. A lot of times, like for instance, kids starting off with a computer channel, Shannon Ross. Shannon, you know, his parents were, fairly educated, but bought him a computer during the first generation when the computers were coming out because they had a little money. Well, I ain't gonna say little. I don't know this man, his family situation, but only what he told me. But basically, they had money and they bought him a computer. He was so ahead of the curve. Like that's his career now. He's into photography. He does he has a t-shirt company, he does marketing, and he does digital graphics and all that stuff, all deriving from working on that computer all the time. He was ahead of the curve with a lot of stuff than most kids taking computer classes with older kids when they were talking about it. He already had these softwares at his house. So while the kids were doing stuff at school, he would go home and practice because he had it at home. And a lot of times the parents don't even know like how smart their kids are because you only see them as your kids. You don't see them as this intelligent person because a lot of parents don't even be around their kids, hang with them like that. You work, you come home, if you got time, slap them in the head, ask them how was their day, and that's it. You know, and it just come down to yeah. I mean, it just come down to a situation with us teaching. That's why I go back to the youth about teaching the kids. That's why I'm so passionate about getting my son. I got him a tutor. I'm not ashamed. Everybody's not that smart. Everybody's not to that point where they're, in a position. So he needed help with math. I got him a tutor. I got his brother in there too. I got twin boys. It's crazy how the other one he didn't like reading as much, but then when I expressed to him, I said, just because you're twins, you don't have to not like the opposite to where if he likes math, then you don't like math. If he likes reading, then you don't like reading. Both of you guys are twins. You compete for other things, not far as for education. You know, they had a situation when they were young, like I like cars, you like trucks. Don't like my cars because I like cars. You like trucks. You stay with liking trucks. And I'm like, it's not a competition, but kids will be kids. But I had to get my son the understanding of that. Like, son, you need to focus more on your reading. You focus more on your comprehension skills. I got him into a situation with him always, having to read out loud, you know, going through books. The sight word thing killed this generation. Instead of teaching them, like I told my wife, a hooked on phonics is the best thing. Sight words are literally killing this generation because all they have to do is just remember the words, go off of sight what they see, and I'm like, come on, man. Like it's like when it comes down to it, teaching the kids the fundamentals. I told my wife about when we got together, hooked on phonics. You know, my two older kids, they were already pretty decent. She had a plan out for them. They were good. Just tweaking here and there. She kind of got hot at me because I used to spoil them and buy them all these toys, TV. Like my wife don't even want me to put a TV in my twins' room now, and they're 12. I'm like, man, why can't they have a TV in their room? She's like, no, it's too. I was like, this generation, yeah, they might don't need TVs in the room. Yeah, yeah, and it helps. That's the thing. The tutoring, it's nothing wrong with tutoring. You know, um, I don't care if anybody looks down on my kids for tutoring. I mean, I'm better in their education. I'm getting them prepared for the future. We can say the least. Hey, it doesn't matter. It's up to the person. Okay. When it comes down to it, summertime, same thing. I actually got them in a tutoring A plus and A plus of America, and they just give them assignments and stuff like that. But the other tutoring I have where they actually go on calls, going on the what is the webinar thing type deal. Um, I think it used to be for Google. I think they changed the name of it for something for Google. But yeah, going doing that. Dealing with my kids all the time, man. That's like always the time. What's going on, Black Money? But that's been a thing. Okay, when it comes down to it, man, you getting those teachers, having the conferences, asking the teachers about stuff about your kids, getting a teacher, kind of recognize that you're a parent that's involved in their lives, it helps those kids in that process go a lot farther, you know, because they're going to take them more time to understand and get on those kids. Yeah, zoom, zoom, zoom. Yeah, because they're going to say, hey, this parent is, all for helping their kid. And, even to a point that, like, it's so many advantages with talking with the teachers, having that one on one. Because there's some time when your kid does something wrong, teacher calls you right away. I remember I had two teachers, had an issue with my kids. Once I gave them my cell phone, all the issues stopped. Everything was cool. But they would call, talk to my wife. She just, man, I'm like, don't let them get away with it. Then they don't tell me. Then I come down to it. It's the third situation, and I'm like, where was I in the loop with this? And the school's like, well, it's kind of the norm, so I can't really push too much. But the teacher even said it, and it was kind of, but well, we didn't know if the dad was home or we didn't know this and that. So they typically went off saying, well, we normally talk to the mom, and since we seen her on the paperwork, we call her first. And you have these typical things to talk about, but nevertheless, hey, we have to have these discussions. Say winning from talking about finance to the kids again, but that's what I'm passionate about. My kids, man. Even my two older kids, my son and my daughter, stay on top of them. My son's 23, daughter is 25. Hey, what are you doing with yourself? You know, just because you out of my house and you're older, you never stop being a parent. You literally never stop being a parent. My son always, coming to pick up his brothers. Like, this is probably like the son of the year right now, man. This boy come picks up his brothers. We took him to football games, take him out skating, just different things, get him out the house. They like hanging with their brother because they know he taking them to have fun, even if he make him go do some work, clean up the yard. I know one day he had him clean up his sister house and everything. But the point of it is they getting out doing something with him, and they getting that bonding time. Yeah, and that's the thing. It comes down to it. You got to get into that. You got to get your kids into that mindset. You know, like I said, my cousin, he had all that. I didn't have none of that. My grandmother, she liked to work. Her sister, which is my aunt, man, she was more focused on, business. She taught her kids business. That's the thing. We got to start teaching our kids stuff and getting them equipped and getting them involved, man, with life. But I'm gonna go ahead and jump off of here, man. About to get right into it. About to go grab me something to eat and then run on up out of here. But nevertheless, man. Oh shit. But nevertheless, I'm gonna jump off of here, man. I'll holler at y'all later. All right, bye. Yeah.